Good morning.
Good morning, James from Kerouacs Cruising.
James and Kara Kerouac. And we have officially started our adventure. We are super excited about it. We want to give you guys all the details. So we're going to start with kind of talking about how we planned this whole trip, our big whirlwind adventure to Sandpoint. And James did most of our planning. I kind of had, basically my only thing was we keep driving past Great Basin National Park. So I wanted to go there. So he kind of planned out our route. So James, what all went into you doing that?
Well, just to start off, we're traveling from Arizona, really close to the Grand Canyon, right outside the Grand Canyon. Hopefully you guys have all listened to our Grand Canyon episodes. So we're leaving the Grand Canyon and we're heading to Sandpoint, Idaho to my son's house, which is 1,361 miles. I really used every avenue of information I could gather to plan the trip. And we're traveling with dogs. So it's like, how do you figure out how much time to drive? How long do we stay at campsites to rest, let the dogs run around, get them tired? So all that went into it, but the initial road trip itinerary started me out with just looking at where I could disperse camp on the way. And I use just regular Google. I use OnX maps, a really good website or app that is called Gaia GPS, and another one that does campsites all over, not only dispersed camping, but paid campsites also, is called
Campendium.
So a lot of different ways I looked at it, different views, looking at maps, making sure that we were going to be able to camp at some of these locations. So we started our trip and we knew we had to go visit our friend Lonnie in Bullhead City. Now, Bullhead City, eventually we will do dispersed camping in Bullhead City. We have been out there. We really just stayed at his house. That was 3 hours from our house to his house. And that we just went there, relaxed. We actually finished doing our laundry there.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other days, we planned on driving 6 hours a day. We thought that was sufficient. It's not too long. We've driven 12 hours a day, which is not good. Even 8 hours a day is just too much. So we came to the conclusion that 6 hours like the happy medium for us and the dogs. So traveling from our friend Lonnie's from Bullhead City to Great Basin was exactly 6 hour drive. Started out, we had to drive through Vegas. Traffic was heavy in Vegas. Plus there was a lot of construction. After you get through Vegas, the drive is just wonderful.
Beautiful.
And no traffic, just smooth sailing all the way up to Great Basin. So it was a really good trip. Got to Great Basin. Took us 8 hours because of the delay in Las Vegas. So that part of it wasn't that great. But one of the things you want to watch closely is weather. So I was looking at the weather, got to Great Basin, and all of a sudden the weather changed, and our last day there was going to be Friday, but they forecasted snow, and I didn't want to drive in the snow. So we ended up leaving Thursday. Every place we stopped, we wanted to stay for at least 2 to 3 days. So we stayed at Great Basin for 2 nights and then left and then headed. Our next stop originally was going to be Walla-Whitman National Forest in Oregon. Again, we were looking at weather and some other aspects of Oregon that we didn't want to deal with. So right at the last minute, even though I already planned my camp spot, we decided to change and we stayed right in Idaho. So we came up from Great Basin through Jackpot, Twin Falls, and we decided instead of taking a western route, heading over to Oregon, then up through Washington, we decided to go straight up through Idaho, and our first stop that we decided was Crater of the Moon. Found a great camp spot, and there was many reasons, but weather was the biggest reason. So that was, again, 6 hours. Where we ended up stopping was pretty east of exactly where we were going to stop in Walla-Whitman National Forest. So we stopped at Crater of the Moons, and then we stayed there 3 days, couple of days, and then we moved to Missoula, Montana, and camped in Missoula, Montana. That was only a 5-hour drive from Craters of the Moon, and then staying there for a couple of days. And then the last leg of the trip is just 4 hours to Sandpoint. So that was the planning. A lot of things that we did also was planning how to shut our house down, because this is the first road trip that we're actually going to be gone 6 months or more. So planning to shut the water, drain the hot water tank, blow out water lines at home, put antifreeze in the toilet. We took down our solar panels, put them in the house. We boarded up the windows and doors and boarded up our sheds. There was a lot of planning and a lot of work before we left. How I planned it out was using every way available to me, gathering information and making it as relaxing as possible to drive 1,361 miles.
How much time would you guess, or do you estimate that it took you to plan out the trip, all combined, because you had made a plan and then you changed it? So with both of those plans combined.
I think with the planning on how I was going to shut the house down, the planning on the road trip, how many days we were going to stay at each place, and changing it probably was at least really 3 to 5 hours. Not that I spent 3 to 5 hours one day.
Yeah, no.
But it was 3 to 5 hours looking at stuff, some days writing down stuff, rethinking it and changing it and, doing all that. And figuring out how much it was going to cost in gas. That was the other thing I did. So kind of a lot went into it to make sure that we knew exactly and try to make it as smooth as possible.
Mm-hmm. Now, for those who are not familiar, especially with the Idaho area, it seems kind of weird that why would we go up through Nevada? Of course, Idaho's directly north of Nevada, and end up going into Oregon or Washington, or the other way, going further east, like we have decided to end up going, Craters of the Moon, and then back into Montana to get into that northern panhandle in Sandpoint. It's because it's the Rocky Mountains in between, and it is, not only is it the end of April, so weather in the higher elevations is still snow, but those super windy roads, we've got a Ford Expedition towing a 16-foot trailer. So even if there wasn't snow, those windy roads through the mountains and trying to climb the Rocky Mountains is a lot of extra stress that we don't want to deal with. So taking the roundabout ways, I guess it's called Hell's Canyon, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you were to take the other way straight, directly through Idaho, not leaving Idaho once you come in. So that's why we kind of take the roundabout way. I think it is extra miles for sure, but it's probably close to the same amount of time if we were to go through Hell's Canyon.
Hell's Canyon's slow.
Yeah.
And they close the roads there in winter conditions. So to take the roundabout way is really just safer for everybody. It's just safer.
Yeah.
And then even if you Google it, it will tell you, it won't even bring you up through them other areas.
Right now.
In the summertime, if you're traveling through Idaho, definitely go through Hell's Canyon. With the river on the side, they got people whitewater rafting. It's a great area to see. But we're heading up there. It's the third week in April. You're just going to run into some weather.
So how long is this trip taking us? I haven't even been paying attention.
We are going to take 10 days to get 1,361 miles. And if you looked at that, it's really only 22 hours of drive time. But nobody wants to stay in a car for 22 hours, nonetheless, with dogs. And one of the things that we're trying not to do is drive at night at all. Period. End of the story.
Especially after our car accident.
We're just doing 6 hours a day, and 6 hours seems like a really good sweet spot. I'm really just getting sick of driving and being in the car, and it's like, okay, we only got 30 minutes to our destination. So if people are doing road trips, I really highly suggest, we have friends that only do 1 tank of gas, which is, whatever that is for your vehicle, but it's like
400 miles, 300 miles.
Yeah, 300 or 400 miles. And really, we've been doing 400 miles. It takes us 6 hours to do roughly 400 miles.
And it's been great. Like James says, it's the perfect amount of time. We stop, stretch our legs at halfway through a tank of gas, have some lunch, let the dogs run around. Love's truck stops are amazing because they have dog parks. So you can let the dogs run around a little bit while you're rotating, going to the bathroom.
Filling up on gas, checking the oil.
Yeah, the Love's truck stops are really amazing. They recently just started putting them in. They didn't have them a few years ago, and they are really, really wonderful. And they have the little bags there most of the time, so you clean up after your pets. I don't think we've come across one that hasn't been well maintained. They're really, really wonderful. We kind of are becoming Love's truck stop snobs because of that. And then they've also got, as far as snacks go, a lot more of the healthier options, a lot of fruit cups. They've got hard-boiled eggs. They have tons of different salad varieties. They do meat and cheese combinations. So we usually bring our own food just because it's easier for us to eat on the road. But if you want the healthier snack options, Love's has been great for that too.
We talked about the driving prep, but now we're going to talk about the food prep that we all do when we travel. And I don't usually take care of that, but we do eat a pretty strict diet. So eating at convenience stores or fast food is not really an option for us. So Kara just makes things as simple as possible for us to eat on the go. So Kara, what kind of preparation did you do to get ready for this trip that we're actually on the road for 10 days?
So I started out, of course, trying to do the most difficult and more complicated stuff at the house before we leave. But being gone for 10 days, food doesn't stay fresh for that long. So I can't do everything or couldn't do everything. So I just did some small stuff. We had a broccoli salad that I made for us to have with dinners. I made some tuna salad so we could just have some quick tuna and crackers. And then for one of our lunches for our main day of driving, I did, we love prosciutto with some kind of fancy goat's cheese and crackers. And we'll just eat while we're on the road. I'll make up each little cracker for James as we're driving. But other than that, we try to keep the days that we're going to be on the road as simple as possible. So breakfasts are things like granola or cereal with some fresh fruit that we can just have really quick. There's no cooking involved. Same thing with lunch, the tuna and crackers or cheese and crackers. And then dinners, we tend to have a little bit more time. So like I said, I did the broccoli salad for our first few days. But then after that, we don't want to be doing a whole lot of prep at the campsite. And especially we don't know what kind of amenities when we get from one site to another. Sometimes we just are going to have our plastic folding table. So I don't want to be chopping up vegetables and things like that. So I really, really, really like, and it sounds like a cop-out, but those chopped salads that you can buy at the grocery store. It's got all the greens chopped up real small, nice and easy, bite size. Got some flavorful things like bacon, or the one we like is the Mediterranean one. It's got just a tiny little bit of the dried pita bread. It gives it just a little bit of crunch, some feta cheese, and it's a balsamic vinaigrette. So those are really nice. We mix those up. And then we'll slice some potatoes to grill with whatever meat we're grilling. So primarily our main cooking apparatus is a grill. In the morning for coffee, we've got one of those little burners that you attach to, what are they, the butane propane combination? Rocket stove, yeah. With a percolator pot that we take the percolator out. We just heat up water and make it as simple as instant coffee. So it's as quick and easy as possible. And we mix that with some of the Element electrolytes. We are obsessed right now with the caramel chocolate electrolytes. So we mix that in with our coffee. Absolutely delicious. You don't have to deal with sugar. You really don't have to deal with cream. It's so delicious. But we really like our coffee tasting as much like dessert as possible. So we get some heavy whipping cream with that. But that's a nice hard plastic jug that's easy to throw in the cooler. Things like fresh fruit. I made a nut mix that's just walnuts, pecans, and some dried berries. So that's great for snacking all day. Of course, pistachios are always wonderful. If you've ever had Natural Grocers dried mangoes, those things are absolutely delightful by themselves without any added sweeteners. They are as sweet as a dessert. So that's kind of about it. Really just try to make it as simple as possible, as little prep at the campsite as possible, because again, you just never know what you're going to have available to you. Try to prep some stuff before we hit the road so we can have the more complicated things at the beginning of the trip. And then from there on out, because you're going to have to, on a long trip like this, being 10 days, you're going to have to refresh on groceries, get some fresh meats. We did leave the house with frozen meat, just kind of slowly thawed them, rotated them away from the ice. As it was getting closer to the days that we were going to use them, we brought a big hunk of bacon that we have been making breakfast sandwiches on sourdough with, or breakfast burritos. Just really, again, trying to keep it as simple as possible, using as little cooking apparatuses as possible, making it as grill friendly as possible.
What else about prepping?
I mean, other than that, when we're trying to leave the house, it was really trying to, because we can't leave any food behind at the house, of course. So we had to try to dwindle everything down. So it was being strategic in our grocery shopping and how we were eating. And then, of course, we had our goodbye tour. It just seemed like every other day we were meeting up with somebody, having dinner. Things were coming up unexpectedly. So that did add a complication to trying to dwindle down the food and the groceries so that we weren't wasting anything, of course. But of course, being gone for as long as we're going to be gone, we don't want to attract rodents or pests or anything of that nature. So we had to clear all of the food out of the house. So anything we weren't taking with us needed to get thrown away or eaten. So that was an extra layer that you really don't consider until the last minute of sort of things that you got to take care of when you're buttoning down the house and hitting the road for as long as we're going to be gone.
Well, there you have it. That's our planning to go 1,361 miles.
If you are planning on any road trips and you want any advice on where to go or how to find information, definitely feel free to ask us. Always, you can reach out to us at join@KerouacsCruising.com, our Facebook page, and of course our website.
Thanks for tuning in to Kerouacs Cruising.
We're thrilled to have you with us.
We had a blast recording this episode and hope you enjoyed our adventures as much as we enjoyed sharing them.
For more amazing pictures and stories, visit our website and blog at KerouacsCruising.com.
And join the conversation on Facebook at Kerouacs Cruising or email us at join@KerouacsCruising.com.
We'd love to hear your thoughts and suggestions.
If you enjoyed this episode, please consider liking, subscribing, and leaving us a review.
Your support helps us reach more listeners and allows us to continue sharing our travel experiences with you.
It's a generous favor that means the world to us.
Thank you so much for listening to Kerouacs Cruising.
Until next time, happy travels.